My name is Ryan Green, and I will be talking about climate change and its relation to the UN. Changing climate and the effects can be seen all over the world, whether it is worse storms, droughts, wildfires, or floods. A lot of problems lead to the sea level rise and melting of the polar ice caps, like in Greenland. Melting is a natural event, however, it is being sped up by a lot of things, such as warm water that cuts away at the front of the glacier. Melt lakes then form on top and drain down, sometimes reaching the bedrock and causing the iceberg to slip towards the sea and melt. Scientists explain that if all of the ice in Greenland were to melt, it would raise global sea level by 21 feet. That is enough water to submerge some of the world's largest cities, such as New York, London, and Sydney, or even entire countries such as Bangladesh. Climate change began around 1900 to show its effects when meteorologists began to recognize the increase in temperature between years. The Industrial Revolution has had many positive contributions to modern society, but a significant problem is the increase in carbon dioxide and how it has affected the Earth. It took people from 1900 to 1960 to take notice of climate change, and even today most people don't recognize that it's happening. There are many ongoing debates surrounding the controversial issue of climate change and global warming. For example, some people don't think people are even the problem. Others argue that global warming could be good for agriculture because of longer growing seasons and warmer climates. Some people say that global warming is only a problem if it happens faster than people can adapt to it. Lastly, a large incentive to steer clear of greenhouse gas emission cuts is the extreme cost that comes along with it, making it difficult for businessmen and women to support the cuts. The UN has held many conferences such as the Earth Summit, UNFCCC, Copenhagen in 2009, and most recently a conference in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The conferences started out including solely non-binding agreements and no change was seen. The first conference that included a binding agreement and regulation was Kyoto. Resulting from the 1997 Kyoto Conference was the Kyoto Protocol. The Kyoto Protocol calls for countries on a list called Annex 1 to cut greenhouse gas emissions. The Kyoto Protocol was party to the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. An important professor at Princeton, Jerry Malm, said, quote, "It might take another 30 Kyotos over the next century to cut global warming down to size," unquote, showing that although it was a good first step, much more is needed to truly combat this issue. In 2012, there was a conference held at the Qatar National Convention Center in Doha, which extended the life of the Kyoto Protocol and stated that it was to be developed by 2015 and implemented by 2020. All of the most recent conferences since then have been important, but all non-binding, so they haven't affected anything recently. There have also been resolutions created by the UN, mostly in the organ of the General Assembly. One that provides meaningful insight into the problems of climate change and the actions that the UN has taken to reverse and combat this was issued on December 22, 2015. In this resolution, it begins with acknowledging and reaffirming the previous conferences and meetings that have been agreed upon by the UNFCCC. The resolution clearly states that it quote, expresses determination to address decisively the threat posed by environmental degradation, unquote. It says that the goal is to cut greenhouse gas emissions, therefore allowing the global temperature to drop by 2020. Without action or change, it says the Earth's climate will increase by an average of 2 degrees Celsius each year. After deciding upon the rules and regulations, people were satisfied, calling this, quote, the future we want. There is another important resolution that is integral in understanding the UN action around climate change. In this resolution, there was not much said. It was just a reaffirmation of the Earth Summit and Global Summit for Climate Change. The resolution was published on December 15th and 16th, 2015 in New York City. The UN was motivated to act on the issue of climate change for many reasons, the first being the physical effects that they could not ignore. With citizens of nations' houses falling into the ocean due to erosion or others running out of water and dying of thirst, this was an issue that demanded attention. Animals and plants and humans alike are being affected by this issue, which obligates the UN to act on it and improve the devastation that it is causing. However, because it is such a controversial issue and the UN knew it would cause outbreaks and protests, they were reluctant to do anything very public. The UN was not very effective in dealing with the crisis of climate change. Although there have been some efforts made, there are also a lot of people who do not believe in climate change and are therefore unwilling to act. Also, the first actions made by the UN were voluntary and nothing really changed. However, even when they made the resolutions mandatory, nations still found loopholes like selling oil in exchange for greenhouse gas emissions between developing and developed countries. The UN needs to be much more aggressive and structured if they truly want to fight this global issue. In conclusion, although there have been good efforts made and resolutions published, the UN has not been successful in creating a better lifestyle around climate change. Although every little thing helps, it would take huge efforts for the entire population to get the Earth back to its natural, pre-human, undamaged state. Some countries have a rule or limit for greenhouse gas emissions in place now, but in reality, this has had no physical effect thus far. Similarly, the UN cannot do anything without their unanimous vote, which, on a topic like this, is close to impossible. However, the future looks bright as people are coming together, rising up, and looking for ways to save our Earth.
Rising up in hope and solidarity and determination to change everything.